Well, it's a two for Saturday video fest on the Great White Stokes channel. Hugs and kisses, everyone. Hope you're doing well. And right here, you can see this huge red oak that came down a couple of years ago. And it's just been sitting here like a raisin in the sun, seasoning up. And right there over was a huge branch that I bucked up and got quite a bit of wood off of. And I mean, there's gonna just be cords of wood off this huge tree that's dead and down. And there's another one over there. It's just gonna go to waste and rot if it's allowed to sit there, versus me getting at it with a chainsaw, bucking it up, splitting it, and using it to heat the cabin exclusively. I'm not here to talk about firewood, though. What I am here to talk about is I did an agility test maybe last month. What it was for is not really important. But what I witnessed only reinforced my position, which is modern society has made Western men and women weak, and dare I say, useless when it comes to the utility of their country. Now, it wasn't some run you ragged agility test. No, it was you needed to run 200 yards, go over 2 vaults under a minute, drag some weight, and then swim 75 yards. And I'm a little long in the tooth, as we all are. And it was a mixed crowd as far as who was there, but I got to say, I was probably the oldest guy there at this roundup of people doing an agility test. And I smoked the majority there. There were a few young men fresh out the military that could run. They had their legs about them. But I cannot tell you how many 20-year-old plus young men who couldn't even run 200 yards in the allotted time, or how many young men and women, for that matter, couldn't finish 200 yards on their feet. There were numerous young men falling down on the last 50 yards because their legs gave out on them. There were numerous young women who couldn't finish the last 50 yards because their legs gave out on them. And there were many women there who were grossly overrating their abilities, given their waistlines, about getting over a 3-foot and a 4-foot vault. And it really hit home when the swimming portion came, when I went into the water, you couldn't touch the sides. You had to just jump in, feet first, start swimming. You could tag the other side of the pool, but you could not push off with your legs. And then you had to swim back, touch the pool, couldn't push off with your legs, swim back and get out. I completed 2 laps. Actually, let me take that back. I was completing my 3rd lap before one young man was even starting his 2nd lap. And it was amusing to see how many young men and women lacked the ability to swim competently or with any confidence. Most were dog paddling, struggling for their life. I witnessed one man, get pulled out because he was holding on to the side trying to catch his breath. Another overweight young man get pulled out because you couldn't stop swimming and put your feet on the ground either. You were just in like chest-high water. You had to, if you couldn't go on and you needed a little breather, you could dog paddle in place, but you couldn't stop and just stand up. And I've said it once before and I'll say it again, modern society has made men, especially Western men and women, weak, worthless, and weak. And maybe this is why our countries, Western countries, have been so targeted and the invasions have gone so swimmingly, because the men are weak, soft-bellied, lack any real fighting skill or confidence to engage an enemy. You know, I just got another stripe on my blue belt, well on my way to purple belt. And I've talked about this before. Just to get a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 90% of the people walking in the door with the goal of trying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu never get to, because they can't handle the ass whoopings. It's too much for their ego to come in and get dominated and then learn from those mistakes to dominate. In fact, I'm probably going to put a little clip of a 30-second segment of me slapping an arm bar on some dude who's younger than me. Now, does that mean that I'm like some pinnacle of human conditioning? No. However, I do adhere to a fairly strict regimen as far as diet goes. I drink raw milk. I eat about a half pound of red meat every day, along with avocado and eggs. In fact, on a good day, I'll eat half a dozen eggs in a 24-hour period. I stay away from alcohol. I stay away from carbs and sugar. Does that mean that I'm a saint? No, I do cheat. However, when I do cheat, it's so much more sweeter. Furthermore, staying away from all of the boxed crackers and candies and foods, all of the big ag food. You know, when people find out my age, they're surprised. They think that I'm 10 years younger than I really say I am. But to see this much floundering from young men half my age really opened my eyes to my already working hypothesis, and that modernity, material comfort, really isn't in our best interest, and quite possibly it enslaves us. You know, the people in charge have studied us to a fault, while the peasants are too busy keeping track of sports ball, rap stars, celebrity, tchotchkes, this, that, and the other. The people in charge have set their scientists to study us, figure out how we work, how we tick, what our fears are, what our innermost desires are. They give us a slave tracker 3000 so they can really fine-tune the digital double so they can figure out what you want, although they keep pitching me commercials for erectile dysfunction. I don't know who they're listening to. But I digress. They know how we work, and they know how well keeping up with the Joneses keeps people in check. Some dude will have something a little bit nicer than you, a house just a little bit bigger, a TV just a little bit flatter, a little bit bigger. He might know some people in the industry. Dude, and you will just have men nut ride these people. And it's really gotten out of hand with social media. I mean, you just have these pituitary retards that have covered themselves in tattoos talking about the alpha lifestyle when they're just posing. They're like human peacocks. Because I'll see these guys when they come in, they've got the sleeve of tattoos, and they're just starting out in jits, and they think they're Billy Badass, and then they get tuned up by a girl with a purple belt, or I'll roll with them, and I can smell the ego on them, and it's just a simple sweep to mount to a key lock, and they have no answer. Now, true, in a street fight, it can get a little hairy out there. It can get a little dicey. You may get hit. But unless they're practicing that art, they just don't have anything to answer against someone who's actively training in either Western boxing regularly, judo, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So that's video number 2 today. Hope you guys are well. Take care of your health. And I would really start thinking about how you want your end of life to be. Do you want a long, slow descent into morbidity with lots of hospital visits? Or do you want a quick slide with a nice, sharp, short, massive heart attack where you get a few minutes to tell your loved ones or some co-workers, tell my family how much I love them, how I care about them. They made me proud, and I'm so sorry for my transgressions. Kind of like what happened to Alan Thicke. I would rather have the latter. I do not plan on being some old duffer making repeated visits to a hospital with some chronic condition because of big ag food. Yada, yada, yada. Take care, guys. Be well.